Hello and welcome to the Maine Take. My name is Dana Connors and I'm pleased to be the host of this weekly program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. Each week, with the help of our guests, we take a look at some of the issues, the ideas, the initiatives at work in our state. Every single one of those, their effort is to improve the lives and the livelihood of Maine people, and at the same time, help to grow our economy. Well, today's program focuses on education. It's all about education, new ways, new opportunities. And as one of our guests before we started the show indicated, if you'll always do what you always did and always get what you always got, in today's world, that's probably not working when it comes to education. Because sooner or later, we all come to know that it's difficult to grow an economy, particularly one that you want to be successful without education being in lockstep with the needs of the economy, particularly as it relates to preparing our people for that economy. I guess the question always comes, what does that really mean? And how will you know if you are in lockstep with education, the economy, when education and the economy come together, when business and education leaders are talking to each other? Well, we're going to discuss those questions and probably a lot more with our three guests today. And I'm pleased to be able to introduce them to you right now. First of all is Brian Langley. If you've been around the legislature in recent years, you would have known him as a senator. He served 8 years there, always with an eye on education. Whether he was the chair of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, he was always a leader, whether he had that position or not. But he's also a teacher, owns a restaurant, but today, for our purposes, he's executive director of the Bridge Academy of Maine. We also have with us Jason Judd. Jason is the executive director of Educate Maine, and they are an organization brought together, represented by both teachers and the business community. He came to Educate Maine in 2016 as program manager, as I recall, of Project Login. 3 years later, he was executive director. He's done a wonderful job. I think you can say when you look at his background that he has a demonstrated history of working with K-12 schools. But he recently, or some time ago, earned a PhD degree in education. And you'd be interested to know that some of the emphasis was, and think about it in terms of where we are today, change management, strategic planning, and workforce development. Thirdly is our own Simon West here at the State Chamber. He is one of those people that I got to be careful. I talk too much about his gift of being able to do whatever you ask him to do and to do it very well. I got to stop saying that because somebody's going to take him up on that and I'm going to lose him and I'll be very regretful of that. But he is, for this capacity, he is the CEO of our educational foundation. He more recently was asked to be a fellow for the U.S. Chamber's Education and Workforce Foundation Fellowship Program. I think I said that right. Simon, let me set the stage for our guests in this respect. We've had a history over several years, going back to 2009, of working with Maine Development Foundation, putting out a booklet called Making Maine Work, in which we looked at various issues within our state and created a better understanding as well for people to know what that issue was all about and how to go about addressing some of the problems that were brought forward in those reports. Well, we did three successive years around workforce. One was growing our workforce. One, which is a topic that I want to speak to, is preparing our workforce. And the third was the immigrant influence in our workforce. All three very important. But let's go back to preparing our workforce. In that instance, what we found, which I'll share with you very quickly, was when you ask educational leaders how well prepared were their students going into the workforce, they would tell you 72% were prepared. When you ask the business community, it was like 42%. In other words, we really weren't working together. We weren't talking to each other. The other thing that we found in that report is that we were focused on one pathway for educational success. Unintentionally, we were ignoring other avenues. Maybe it was career technical education, community college, trades and skill development, and so forth. Maybe there were credentials of value. We were trying to lead everybody to that four-year degree. Now, that's wonderful for a lot of us, but it didn't cover the needs for all of us. And the third thing that we learned in that process, that education is a lifelong pursuit. You start when you're very young, when your brain, at that early formative years when the brain is being developed, it really matters to make a difference. But it follows us through K-12, higher ed, adult education. It's really a lifelong pursuit. So that brings us to where we are today with our guests, to talk about new ways, new opportunities, and not doing the same thing and expecting different results. My first guest is Brian Langley, and I gave you his background, but today we're going to focus on his role as Bridge Academy, Executive Director of Bridge Academy of Maine. So Brian, my first question really to you is, tell us a bit about the Bridge Academy. Most of us are aware of it, how unique it is and how special, but for those who may not know, can you tell us what that is?
Thank you, Dana. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. While I was the Senate Chair of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, some folks came to me up in the Bangor area from the Technical Center and Herman High School and some other technical education directors, or CTE Center directors, said, look, we've got this idea we've had around the water cooler. How can we combine technical education and real world skill development and bring in those college credits, those college courses that every freshman on every campus practically around the country has to take? English 101, MAT 111, psychology, history, biology, etc. Combine those two to shorten the distance that it takes to get to a degree or credential of value, and help with student debt so that students don't arrive in the workforce so saddled with student debt that they can't begin to function in society till well in their 30s as they try to pay off student loans to buy a business or buy a house. So there was a pilot project done with the United Technology Center, and the first partner was Herman High School, in which we created a cohort-based initiative where students at Herman High School would take English, math, and science taught to them by their high school teachers who had been vetted as adjunct faculty at the University of Maine. Then they would get on the bus, head over to United Technology Center, and they would sort of disperse around the technical center, taking things like business, healthcare, building construction, engineering, you name it. They would end up in their CTE courses. In part, the other half of what we would do besides arranging for those courses to be taught is we run the summer academies in which we would bring those students onto campus, Eastern Maine Community College, and provide them with a very short experience of being on campus. Most of us might take for granted, if you went to college the traditional way, that you or had parents who told you how to go to college, how to check in, get a roommate, get your college ID, go through the chow line. But for a lot of students who are first generation going to college, it's pretty much a foreign language. So we bring them on campus so they get experience. We even hire an RA to do a class at night on all the ways you can get kicked out of college. Throwing 6 foot long paper airplanes on fire off the top of the building, or trying to bounce kegs on the ground. Those of you who are watching this that may have some of that in your background and didn't get kicked out, I can understand that students really might need to know what the boundaries are when you go to college. Coupled with that, we bring them around to visit unique businesses that are in Maine that people might not have heard about or understand how unique they are. So for example, working in the Bangor area, C&L Aviation, which retrofits jets, GE, which has, it's like a little city inside of there. Northern Lights, one of our strongest partners. We've gone to Wayfair, Bangor Savings, to really show kids that there are incredible opportunities here in Maine. So students would do that in summer. They go back and they take their CTE courses throughout the winter months and on their college courses, come to us again the next summer. And what we focus really on is helping them shape their pathways for post-secondary options in Maine. So we'll bring them onto campus again, but with a different focus in the second summer, and that is bringing them around to visit campuses in Maine so they can really get a chance to see all the opportunities that are here. And very surprisingly to students, not to us, is that someone from southern Maine may really find Fort Kent and Presque Isle pretty neat, and people from northern Maine might find Farmington just the right thing. We've had students who really kind of begrudgingly went and then end up at Maine Maritime Academy out the other end, having saved time and money with their first job at $90K a year. So that's our major focus of what we're up to at this point.
Yeah, I want to follow up because, as you know, Simon and I attended a very special event. Wasn't last Friday, but a Friday before that, and it was kind of a celebration of a partnership coming together. It included 5 different entities, of which the Bridge Academy was one, but it was called the Nursing Pathway Partnership Management Program, and there was a ceremony in which everybody signed their commitment. I would ask you to speak about that. Who was involved and the significance of all of that? Because I thought it was an incredibly positive example of exactly what we should be doing.
Well, I'm so proud of that piece of work, because I firmly believe, as I'm sitting here, that we have all the parts and pieces in Maine to put together these streamlined pathways where students can clearly see that there's a high wage, high demand job waiting for them here in Maine, and they can understand what those steps are. They're clearly laid out. So our process really starts with identifying those students who their inner voice, and I can talk later about that process, is the healthcare field. So they sign up and go to the 2 pilot schools are Hancock County Technical Center and United Technology Center in Bangor. So they enroll in the allied health programs. Now, that's not unusual. It's been going on for 40 or 50 years. But the partnership people that are in this are the technical centers. You have Eastern Maine Community College, Northern Light, and Bridge Academy. So now when the students come in to this, Northern Light has already started. They'll start mentoring and working with these students as they enter their training in high school in the CTE courses. So things like, for example, training these kids coming into healthcare in patient transport. Doesn't require a license, but a student can learn how the hospital works by moving patients around from point A to point B. As they get their training and get their CNA, which is part of the course, Northern Lights position is we could put them into our long-term care facilities where we're really short-handed. It'd be great experience for these young students to develop their bedside manner and patient empathy. Then they're finishing up their second year in the CTE, which they might get another license, CRMA, or even things like EMT. And if they have taken their college courses, which now EMCC has helped to develop and the University of Maine has helped develop, math for nursing, anatomy and physiology, biology for nursing, those sort of prerequisites while they're in high school, they shave off a year of post-secondary. Now, recognizing the work that's been done in high school, Eastern Maine Community College is saying, we'll give these students the next available slot in our nursing program because they've proven themselves. Now they have a license to be a CRMA or CNA, Certified Nurse's Aide. They have had the schooling. They have passed college courses, so they have the academic ability. So if they have the right GPA, they go right into now it would be 2 years towards the associate RN program. Now they would still go to work, maybe summers and nights and weekends or whatever with maybe at Northern Light and continue getting their experience. And then when they pass their boards, they graduate and pass their boards, there's a job waiting for them. Now it doesn't end there, at least in this pathway. because Northern Light already has this program called Work to Grow, in which that student then would have Northern Light pay for them to finish up their bachelor's degree as part of being employed there. So all in, a student might look at having about 10 grand invested in this, less than a car loan. And then if they didn't get enough scholarships or Pell Grants or such to cover that, certainly doesn't take long to pay that off. And then they're into the workforce about a year earlier than counterparts, and probably with a lot more hands-on experience than others might have gotten. So that's everybody bringing their A game. And we do our part in the middle of working on college success skills, helping students learn how to advocate for themselves, running the summer academies and exposures. And we sort of fill in the gaps and help these students develop those skills to be successful. So that's in a nutshell what we took about a year to complete.
Well, it's an incredibly successful initiative and very, very inspiring. Jason, I really want to turn to you next, because your organization was created for that very purpose of getting education and the business community to work together, whether it's your board composition, whether it's your plans that you develop. So I want to build upon that just a little bit in terms of telling the public the significance of Educate Maine and how it fits into all of this. Then I want to move into Maine Spark.
Great, thanks Dana for having me today and having me be a part of this conversation. So as you mentioned, Educate Maine's a business-led education nonprofit. We're about 10 years old. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and we're really, like you mentioned, at the intersection of business and education in the state. Our board and our staff believe that in order to have a strong economy, we've got to have a strong education system. So what we do is we look at the whole system from early childhood through adulthood and look at ways the business community can help improve parts of the system, because we know that in order to have people stay here and raise their families here and come to Maine and want to thrive, we've got to have a strong school system all across the state, not just in particular affluent communities. So what we find is when business and education leaders work together, as Brian mentioned, the Bridge Academy program, there's a number of business connections there. He mentioned Northern Light Health as a prime example of kind of leading the way and investing in their employees. And I think, Bridge Academy is a great example of education and business partnerships. So much of what we do is try to help Maine people increase education attainment so that they are more skilled for the workforce. We know that in order for people to thrive, they need to have training beyond high school. So a lot of the work we do is trying to help people understand the value of post-secondary education, both with short-term credentials as well as four-year degrees, because we really need both of them for our economy and the state to thrive. We need teachers, we need engineers, we need scientists. We also need folks to work in the trades and to really excel with short-term credentials. We've talked about healthcare as one example. We need people there. We need people in manufacturing, as well as a whole variety of other sectors specifically. So a lot of what we do is figuring out how the business community and educators can work together to strengthen schools and then have strong education and workforce policy to make sure that we could have strong, equitable school systems across the state from early childhood through adulthood.
Yeah. You and your predecessor have been leaders in this initiative that we refer to as Maine Spark. And I would ask you to talk about that, both in terms of its purpose, its goal, but how you are approaching it and where you stand today.
Certainly. Well, we're really proud of the Maine Spark initiative, and all of you folks on the call have been involved in Maine Spark in a number of ways, and we appreciate that support. So we publicly launched Maine Spark back in 2017, although there was some organizing that happened before that date. Really a group of nonprofits and higher education systems all working together, recognizing that we needed to come together on one common goal and actually work collectively to have a larger impact on the state. And that goal was really based on making sure the people that were graduating from high school and adult learners had the skills and credentials to be able to thrive in our workforce. So at that time, the projections were showing that by 2025, 60% of our adult workers in Maine would need a degree or credential of value to match the open jobs that are available in 2025. At the time when we started, I think we were in the high 30% of adults having a degree or credential of value. So we were really concerned collectively that our workers didn't have the training they needed to be successful. So we launched this initiative. We agreed upon working together to make sure that by 2025, 60% of Maine adults have a degree or credential of value that can get them ready for a high quality job with family sustaining wages specifically. And we're up to 53% right now. We've made really good progress, and we've actually been cited quite a few times nationally for our growth in both short-term credentials as well as degrees since the initiative started in 2017. The state of Maine has also written in the state attainment goal both into statute, thanks to the Honorable Langley here, as well as the Mills administration has supported it in the 10-year plan specifically. So excited about the initiatives that we've worked together on, but I will say we've got a lot of really important work to do between now and 2025. And I think several of these investments that are part of the supplemental budget proposals around college affordability, student debt, free community college, investing in the four-year system are going to help us meet the Maine Spark goal in 2025. But we need everybody around the table helping send the message that we need people to upskill so that they can be ready for all these open jobs with higher wages than what they might have now.
If for a viewer who may ask, what is a credential of value? We understand a 2-year associate or a 4-year degree or career technical education. What is a credential of value?
Great question. We get that quite a bit. Credential of value is really a certificate, a license, some stackable credentials that are recognized by industry as having the skills that you need for a job. So for example, the construction industry will say, these are the particular courses that you need in order to have a credential of value within construction. In addition, there's also degree pathways within construction that are fine too. But each industry has smaller credentials that take less time to complete, that are industry recognized. Sometimes they're welding certifications. Other times it's food service, ServSafe certifications, things like that. But the good thing about credentials of value is it opens up a variety of pathways that can lead to a longer degree if it's appropriate for that young person or for that adult. But it gives folks stackable demonstrations of learning that they can use to immediately get a job, as opposed to wait to an associate's degree or bachelor's degree or beyond. Credential of value is really a broader way to look at the various pathways within the workforce to demonstrate your skills.
And another side of that has been pointed out to me in a highly fast-moving technological age. If someone said to me once, boy, if I have to spend and wait 4 years to get a degree that's obsolete in 5, then I'm sort of spinning my wheels. But a lot of credentials of value too are around industry-sponsored schools. I think when I was teaching at Hancock County Technical Center, students in the automotives would leave with automotive service excellence, ASE certifications. You could get it in brakes, you could get it in electronics, you could get it in refrigeration. And so it immediately allowed you to be able to go to work, certainly on those components. And as Jason just said, stackable, so that as people go out to work, they can keep stacking those and not, have that opportunity cost of spending 4 years out of the workforce, trying to get those credentials. So that's the wave of the future.
Thanks. And one point I'll just make is just that these aren't credentials for credentials' sake. The Maine Spark Group is very much connecting credentials with job openings in local communities here in our state with great employers. And it's very much tying those credentials to sector needs as opposed to just education for education's sake. So I did want to point that out because it's really important that we're increasing wages and matching adults with job opportunities in our state, in addition to upskilling them, which is a huge part of the work we're doing with the coalition.
Jason, knowing that when this was created, what was it? The goal was established like in 2017 or in that time frame, and we were in the high 30s. We're now at 52, and you said it well when you said the job's not done, but have to be encouraged because 52% is closer to the goal than far closer than when you started. That's very encouraging. But I also know you well enough to know that it's not a one and done. When you get to that goal, which I know you will, there will be chapter 2 that will take on some form to reach a new goal or make perhaps improvements, whether it's in the cost of education or the debt associated with education, other areas, and perhaps a new goal when it comes to attainment. So
certainly, I mean, yeah, no, we're certainly hearing, Maine employers are leading the way, and upskilling is just going to increase over time rather than decrease. Yeah. So, the Maine Spark coalition is supported by a whole number of employers, and obviously the Maine State Chamber is a founder of the coalition. So what we have to do is follow the workplace trends, and what the workplace trends are telling us are that stackable credentials that are changing, that folks are really, the expectation is you need to be a lifelong learner and you need to keep upskilling all throughout your occupation to be able to stay relevant and trained. So I think you're definitely right that we've got great work we need to do by 2025. But then certainly we won't have workforce all figured out by 2025. We'll simply have a much more trained workforce to match the jobs we have available. And then we'll have to keep both young people and adults promoting the idea and pursuing the idea of upskilling throughout their careers so that they're ready for these technological innovations that are happening, that are changing jobs through automation and other areas.
The other issue that has become so paramount, and I think really quite significant in terms of the time we're in and meeting the needs of workforce and education, both you and Brian have referenced it, but that's the role of internships. And I know that Educate Maine has a tremendous effort and to try to help in that respect, whether it's with the immigrant community or whether it's with businesses themselves. It's taken on a new meaning and new presence.
Yes, we certainly do a lot of work in the internship, apprenticeship, as well as co-op student space through one of our programs called Maine Career Catalyst. And you can find out more information on our website. This year, we're particularly proud to be leaning into a couple of sectors. We've launched an Aquaculture Pioneers program with Focus Maine, specifically to help aquaculture employers pay wages for interns in aquaculture to really expand internship opportunities in that space. We've also partnered with you and our friend Tay and the Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce to specifically focus on BIPOC students, non-traditional learners that are also identify as BIPOC students, and get more of them with internship opportunities and provide them with the support they need to thrive in those internship opportunities throughout the summertime. And the Maine business community has been right at our side supporting these initiatives and rolling up their sleeves and saying, how can we help? And they've come through for us. So we see that many of our employers are offering up to 60% of their interns full-time employment following the internship. So it's a great workforce development strategy. Lets the employer test out the potential employee, lets the student test out the employer to make sure it's a good fit, and then transition the job offers either into the fall, directly after their college or their certificate experience, or even get job offers kind of a year ahead of time on successful completion of those degrees and credentials. So robust opportunity in Maine that's only been expanded given hybrid and virtual internship opportunities as well.
I do want to turn to you because I know how interested you are in this issue, how committed you are to trying to bring the chamber into the fold. So as you listen, and I know that this may be a predictable question, but you're involved in both the effort that you and Brian have worked on, but also with Maine Spark. But when you look at Chamber's Education Foundation in respect to what you've heard here today, what is our role? What do you see our role to be? How can we add value to that?
Well, thanks, Dana. In listening to what Jason and Brian have both said today, two reoccurring themes come out. The best way to move forward with education is to have industry leaders and educators working together to solve problems, and to also be innovative and to think differently about education than we have done so in the past. I think innovation in education and training right now is super important. And one of the things I see commonly right now is you hear that a lot of employers are working on growing their workforce and pulling talent from competitors through increasing wages or having sign-on bonuses. And if you were to look at competitors in an industry that are fighting for customers by simply having downward pressure on their prices, you would see that as not being sustainable. And that, I think, really translates into the labor market we're in right now, where we're trying to develop your talent pool by increasing your wages. If you would ask Maine businesses, especially our smaller ones, that it already feels unsustainable. And so what the State Chamber's Education Foundation can do to be helpful is to work with Educate Maine and to work with the Bridge Academy to bring employers to the table to help make some of those conversations with employers and educators take place. Brian's work with the nursing pathways and partnerships is, that work with nursing is super important, because we're already looking at, if we were to do nothing, a labor shortage of about 3,200 nurses in Maine by 2025. And so that's a great area to begin. But the beauty of the model and the partnerships that come together is it can be replicated. One of the great things you can see that the need for CTE in Maine is growing is in the last 2 school years, 40 CTE programs have been added. This is because of a demand for those skills in the labor market, but also to increase the capacity for students who are interested in CTEs. And I think that for both industry and students to get the most out of these CTE programs, educators and industry leaders need to work together to make sure that these students are getting the skills they need to bring value to the employer, but to also show them the opportunities that are out there for them, to keep them in Maine and to give them rewarding careers in the future. And so the foundation of the Education Foundation for the State Chamber of Commerce is just to bring employers to the table and keep that conversation going.
Yeah, and picking up on a point that you kind of alluded to is that the opportunity is there without having to repeat a same program done by a different organization or association. There is room to cultivate this new territory to meet the needs in the sectors without duplicating work that's already taken place.
Exactly. Yeah, this model can be expanded to a great number of different CTE programs that are offered throughout Maine schools, as well as impacting the needs of employers in a bunch of our different great industries.
Well, I got to say, even though our time is about up, I would love to keep you on for another hour, because you are, all three of you are so good in getting your arms around this issue and showing how we can move forward. This doesn't have to be an impossible task. It really is very manageable. And what you've said here today is so encouraging. And when you think about that report that we did back in 2014-15, and where we are today, both in terms of recognizing there's a multiple pathway, and there's room for every institution, name it, whatever it may be, and that we are talking with each other. Business and education is coming together. So there's both a partnership and a pathway. And while we're not where we exactly want to be, it's probably a race that has no finish line, that you have to continue to work at it. It's what you have offered here today is extremely encouraging. And that probably should be my takeaway, but I want to add a couple more comments to go with that, because you have pointed out in such a significant way that the role of education in our lives and to our livelihood is indisputable. As a matter of fact, I often use this in at times when I'm making speeches across the state that in spite of all the issues that can divide us, there are two things that unite all of us, no matter where you live, what you do, or what your politics are. The two things are our economy and our people. We want our economy to be robust, to be successful. We want our people to be prepared for that economy, to reach their potential and to be successful. And the question is, what's that have to do with education? Truth is, it has everything to do with education. But to simply say that word education doesn't stop there. And you brought this forward in such a significant way today. It's not enough to say education and stop there. That if we are to have that formula that allows us to have a successful economy and an education that responds to this, then there are things that you brought forward that truly matter, that make a difference, that will help us deal with those Paul Harvey words. Now you know the rest of the story, because the rest of the story really is about a partnership between business and education, between the educational systems themselves, so that community college and universities and CTEs and the values of credential values or licenses are all part of that. Whether it's the system or whether it's us as business and educators talking together, that partnership is vital. And you brought forward in very convincing terms that this issue of pathway is so important, that it's not one pathway to achieve one type of degree, be it a 4-year or whatever, doesn't serve the economy today. It's a multiplicity of ways to get there. And thirdly, progress really does mean that you have to have a goal like Maine Spark, that we want to get 60% by 2025 have a credential value or degree. That's important. But what's also important that you've been able to do, because you articulated it, you need a metric. You need something that measures that success, that gives people a sense of movement, of satisfaction. And that's extremely important, because if we are to consider that education is a lifetime pursuit, it can be discouraging if you think you're not making progress, but it is an important part. And to measure that is a significant part of any plan, whether you're in government or whether you're in business. You know, I do end, after all, with this thought that we've come a long way since 2015 when we pointed these issues out. That I'll bet today it wouldn't be 72%, 42% difference, because we are talking to each other, we're listening to each other. Frankly, I'm very encouraged by what I see going on and what you have shared with us today. But I think we do need to remember that it's not one and done. It is a race that has no finish line. It's both the journey and the destination being where the economy is and how we must change the education system together with the economy to make it work. Probably what doesn't change is the journey. You can say that more things change and more they stay the same. Well, the journey does stay the same, because it embraces what you have said here today, that business and education, that partnership is so important. That pathway is so important. Progress needs to be evident. But most of all, the most important thing is if we come together, we stay together and work together, I'll bet we'll have success. And I do believe that we're on that pathway today. I am so pleased to be able to say that. It's important. It's more than important. Our success depends on it, whether you're the individual, whether you're the educator, or whether you're the economy. That is the takeaway for today. I thank you for being with us. A tremendous shout out to our 3 guests. You guys were incredibly informative and helpful and encouraging. And I'll say this, as I do in every show, in a world where you can be anything, be kind to yourself and be kind to one another. Until next week, Stay safe and be strong, and take care. Bye-bye.